Welcome, everyone. Soon, more than 3 million citizens in Buenos Aires will have full control of their digital identity. What would it mean if every citizen would have full control of their own identity without government control? My name is Xochitl Ivory, Head of Enterprise Growth for Matter Labs, the team behind the ZKsync blockchain. And today I'm joined by a very special guest who has been leading a transformative movement throughout LATAM for transforming digital identity, Diego Fernández, co-creator of QuarkID and former Secretary of Innovation and Digital Transformation in Buenos Aires. He has been instrumental in making this change happen. Diego, we are just getting started in this mission, but welcome.
Thank you so much, Soch. I'm really happy to be here sharing with all of our guests what we did in Buenos Aires and in a big part of Latin America.
Amazing. So first things first, Diego, we had a really compelling announcement not too long ago about digital identity and transformation in Buenos Aires. Tell us a little bit more about that news and why it's so compelling.
I'm going to say something obvious, which is today identity works in analog railways. And all of us are tired of getting pictures of our photo ID, putting that in a website or in a whatever service and starting to do things in front of a camera. And that is just the proxies that different companies create in order to validate your offline identity, your analog identity. Having a digital identity is a must, but we can do it in a way which I consider correct and which will bring prosperity, and we can do it in a kind of dangerous way, and that's centralization. Today we have very useful platforms which give you reusable identity on a centralized manner. The path that we took in Buenos Aires was different. Something like 3 years ago, just 2 years after the W3C standard announcement, we started working with a group of companies, individuals in Argentina and in the region to develop a self-sovereign identity protocol, implementing the standards of self-sovereign identity, digital identifiers, and verified credentials on an open, non-permission blockchain, so as for the government to onboard people, issue them their citizen's credential, their driver's license, their birth certificate, but having no control whatsoever on how people use those identities, and having no control in how other parties, as any given private company, means create or revokes different verified credentials. And for us, that is crucial, first, to give back the power to users, second, to avoid generating this huge centralized database, which the question is not if, but when will they be hacked, because everything gets hacked at the end of the day. And third, but not less important, is giving verifiers the ability to verify someone's identity without contacting the issuer, getting rid of that digital footprint that will leave each time someone verifies something digitally, that the issuer knows that somebody is verifying your identity.
Amazing. So also just wanted to recap a few of the different key components because I want to make sure that the audience is with us. So there's a few different components. There is the existing digital identity app from Argentina. It's called the miBA app, Mi Buenos Aires. It has been around for years, used by millions of people. This is now upgrading its centralized backend to a decentralized one. This is called QuarkID. And QuarkID is what's being powered by ZKsync. Is that correct?
Yeah, we developed a protocol, and that protocol, of course, is available in GitHub. It's an open source protocol, and it was declared, and we will speak probably afterwards, a digital public good by the Digital Public Good Alliance of the UN. That protocol has an open source wallet that everybody can download. But the question here, and for us is always the question, is how do we gain mass adoption? To be honest, each time that I was speaking with Soch yesterday, even reclaiming an NFT for a crypto-savvy user as myself is cumbersome. You need to go and sign your transactions and come back and forth. And if you're thinking about millions of people Some of them are illiterates. Some of them are old people. That won't happen. That won't happen ever. We need to give users a Web 2 kind of interface. So with the decision that we took, and honestly, we changed course over there. Our first call, we say, hey, you know what? We just will encourage people to use the QuarkID open source wallet. And then we realized that that wouldn't be a factor of adoption. So what we did is we took our Web 2 application, just to give you some numbers in. We have 3.5 billion registered users, and we have something like 3 million monthly logins. So what we did is we took the Web 2 application and we replaced the centralized technology just 1 month ago. When you open our application, you got the birth certificate there, but the process behind was you were contacting a service that connected to the database and downloaded online the birth certificate. We got rid of that, and we implemented QuarkID within our Web 2 application, and we upgraded it. So for users, all they felt was, hey, this app got a new icon. They open it, oh, it has a new UX. The first time the onboarding took some time because you need to create your digital identifier and redeem those credentials. But now, once that process is done, you open the application and instantly, as all of the documentation is just stored on your device, you get to see all of your verified credentials over there. And that is so much easier. And the first use case was, hey, you can log in our website, scanning and presenting your citizen's credential. Hence, you don't need to remember a username and a password.
So, and you already kind of walked us through this, but just to make it super concrete and help the audience visualize how it's being used and embedded in the day-to-day life, let's say that I wanted to thank you after this panel and buy you a good bottle of mezcal for being here. I would go to the liquor store in Buenos Aires, right? And I would take the miBA app, open it, find my QR code that verifies my identity. And instead of showing my full identity card with information that's really none of anyone else's business, I would just prove through that I'm of legal age to buy it. And that would settle it?
Yeah, exactly. Today, using ZK technologies, the flow is kind of different because what you do at the end of the day is the bar may show you a QR code, which is a question to your identity. And the question is, are you plus 18? In Argentina, you need to be plus 18 to drink as opposed to plus 21 here. So it's just a question, which is the only information needed to fulfill the transaction. Are you over 18? And you will reply with a zero knowledge proof that you effectively are plus 18. And two things here. I have 3 daughters, 21, 19, and 17 years old. First thing is their ID, they're pretty similar to each other. Their ID has always been a fungible asset. So when my 17-year-old girl wanted to have a beer, she grabbed the 19-year-old girl ID. This is bad for me to tell, but that's true. And she went to the bar, to wherever place, and hey, give me my drink, and fine. Messing with this is much more complex because it's associated with your Face ID. And my daughters, I mean, Face ID is pretty good distinguishing my daughters. They don't mess with Face ID. And the other thing is giving out unnecessary information. And today with the abundance of AI agents, and we're spilling data all over the place. Why does a bartender needs to know my daughter's address, date of birth, even her name? That makes no sense at all. And today we're very careless with our data, and I think and I hope that starts changing, and technology plays a crucial part in that, but our consciousness as citizens of the importance that data, our PI, our personal information data has, is also a big part of the equation.
Amazing. So speaking of verifying our identity, this brings us to the concept of ZK proofs, and you already touched on that a little bit, but so for the people who might not be familiar with what ZK proofs are a cryptographic method that allows users to prove that a certain statement is true without actually showing the sensitive information. So similar in the liquor store example that I provided, instead of showing all that information, you would just show the ZK proof. or not the ZK proof, but the QR code powered by a ZK proof. So staying with that for a little bit, with the blockchain intricacies of things, can you tell us a little bit more about why you chose to build this on ZKsync, one blockchain over another? Let's start there.
Honestly speaking, it was a long journey. As I mentioned, we started in 2021, late 2021, starting with the white paper, as usual. That took us some time. I invite all of the audience to go and read it in QuarkID.org. You'll get the link there. It was a strong dedication, and we started kind of shopping around blockchains and speaking with founders and with different tech teams. We spoke with Rootstock, which is an EVM that is a kind of a layer 2 of Bitcoin. I'm a close friend of the founder, Diego Fernández. We spoke with the guys in Polygon, and they were pretty much focusing what today is Privado ID, Polygon ID by that time. We worked with Starware that was perhaps the longest relationship with their StarkNet technology. And maybe we were too early for that party because they were in the midst of launching mainnet, and we needed a strong support. And then 1.5 years ago, we met the ZK team. We had already decided, and to give a full disclosure here, one of the guys that in a meeting that I had with him, he recommended, hey, you should, in order to implement this, go forward with zero-knowledge technology, was Vitalik. And that was in early 2022. He said, hey, you need to go definitely with ZK. And we met the ZK team, the ZKsync team, and in my perspective, ZK has a pretty strong technology, a very good technology, and now with the ZK stack chain and the Hyperbridge, that is much more scalable and allows you to share liquidity across different app-specific chains. But one of the most important parts, because technology is crucial, but having a strong team supporting us and working with us, and for us, that made the difference. And we have been working together for the last 1 year plus with excellent results, and we're really, really happy.
Amazing. Well, we really enjoy working with you and are excited about being on this journey with you and Argentina, of course. So a few questions here, or maybe one question. Since the integration, you mentioned this already, but I want to make sure we don't miss that. What has citizen adoption looked like in terms of maybe some compelling numbers that you can share? And also, by the way, how amazing, we were talking about this, that the last thing that he did as an innovation officer is he put his city on chain. That was the last thing he did. So,
and I quit it.
But what an amazing way to end your term. Mission innovation accomplished.
Yeah, for me it was perhaps my OKR was achieving that. Of course, with every software-related project, we got delayed. Our original plan was July 2024, and it ended up being October 2024. And pressuring the tech team every day, every night. But I mean, we made it. And for me, that was sort of the closing phase of my tenure, because I feel like I have a lot of things to do outside of government, and I want to focus on that in this very moment. But you asked me from a user perspective, the use cases. I think that today, being in this industry for the last, 7 years, we as a Web3 industry are pretty much disconnected from the real world. So we speak in our own lingo, we speak about our use cases with our users, but that doesn't apply to, and I always mention the case to my 85-year-old mother who before downloading an application in her iPhone, she calls me and she says, hey son, is this application safe? The question is, how do we get on chain my 85-year-old mother? Well, the answer is without she knowing. She doesn't need to know what she's doing. She doesn't care if we have ZK decentralized scalable technology in our backend, or if we have a back office with 4,000 people typing. The only thing she cares is that when she presses a button, things happen. And I think that the governments have a great opportunity there because what I'm going to say is kind of controversial, but when any given project in the Web3 arena or in the financial services tries to onboard a user, they're in a competitive landscape. So you start to get this KYC process, and you say, you know what, I'm tired, I won't give you my ID, and you migrate to another product, or you keep on using the product that you were using. And even if you have the best UX in the world, the process of onboarding people on chain has some frictions. And governments are in a perfect position to pay for that friction. Let me give you a real-world example. We issue or reissue something like 40K driver licenses per month. Okay, we have the monopoly on issuing driver's licenses for Buenos Aires citizens. There's no any other institution which can do that. So people will be or will be willing to maybe go for some friction in order to obtain that driver's license that they need. And I think that governments which have a clear view on what the future should be willing to pay that kind of friction in order to onboard people. Because once we do that as a government, all of the industry has those users available to onboard with just a click.
Now, this development is obviously a major development in itself, but it's also just the beginning of a lot more innovation to come, to your point. So I think we're just going to have to come back next year to the same event to talk about updates. Diego, why do we need blockchain-based identity? Why is it important? And if you can expand on that, why do you think the Buenos Aires decided to make this change now?
I think there are several reasons, and blockchain is too big a word because, in my humble perspective, the approach that several other governments are taking using private permission blockchain, for me, is not a good approach. Because why would I have a private permission blockchain? That is already invented and it's named Oracle databases, and they're much more faster and cheaper. I don't sort of grab the point of having a private permission blockchain. Being in this industry for more than 30 years, that reminds me of intranets. And I don't see the point, honestly, with private permission blockchains. The whole idea behind putting users on chain is precisely the creation of an ecosystem that creates value. So if you put those behind closed gates, hey, I will never want to go there. I will go to whichever other place in which I can interact freely. So one big decision was using blockchain and using a private permission blockchain. The second thing is that we need to use the trustworthiness that a blockchain anchored identity has. And then again here you have to take very crucial decisions which can make that the thing that you're doing is amazing or is awful. So from my perspective, there shouldn't be any type of personal information on chain. Zero, not a little bit, not encrypted, zero PII on chain. That's dangerous. We will be doxxed sooner or later. So the W3C standards precisely allows that. You anchor your DID, which has no PI, no personal information in that DID, and the verified credentials are stored on device, in your device, under your control, but can be verified against that anchorage in blockchain. And that's so powerful because everybody can do that. And the most important thing is that you can do that without contacting the issuer. And that is so crazy because people today don't realize this, but we are leaving footprints. Forget about trillion-dollar companies, Apple, Google, Facebook, that know each login that we do. But the same thing happens with governments. Just to give an example of things that today happen in Argentina, we hope to change soon. Today, when you go to renew a driver's license, we as a subnational state need to verify that you effectively have a residence within our jurisdiction, because I cannot issue a driver's license for anyone from outside my jurisdiction. So when a user goes and says, hey, I want to renew my driver's license, he or she made the decision of letting the Buenos Aires government know that I am renewing my driver's license, because at the end of the day, I contacted them. But what they don't know is that we as a government need to contact national government in order for them to verify that you live in Buenos Aires City. So that information exchange was not allowed and is not yet even known by users. So not leaving footprints on a digital basis each time our identity gets verified is a power that blockchain brings, and it's something that is so crucial in the near future.
Another important aspect that we should briefly talk about is that QuarkID is open source and was recently recognized as a digital public good aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is huge because that has to do with the protection of human rights. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the significance of that recognition? And also, as another question, what do you think the ripple effects will be of a government adopting open source blockchain tech like this?
I think that governments should rely much more strongly than they do in open source in their technology. Of course, that maybe creates an additional effort, but just thinking, cities all over the world deal with the same type of problems. They need a very strong CRM. They need to grab whatever things their citizens is demanding. Hey, please fix this road. Hey, I have this problem over here. They need to deal with trash. They need to deal with the stoplights, and the problems are almost the same. And it's crazy that we don't have this kind of GovTech open source store in which I could choose from, I don't know, 20 to 30 different solutions, open sourced, and install them within my government. And that is sort of being pursued, but not yet achieved. And I think that we made you put a small grain of sand. We actually open source two technologies, one which allows you to project according to your construction codes, the maximum construction of any given plot in the city, and the other one, QuarkID. And regarding QuarkID, we made it open source in February 2022 after going through two different security audits. And we went and applied as a digital public good. It's the only digital identity solution which has that recognition with MOSIP, which is the one used in India, which although it can be decentralized today, is being used in a centralized manner. And that is a very tough process because it was a kind of a 4-month audit in which they checked every aspect of technology, if it's effectively open source, the type of strategy that we're pursuing, and so on. And we're really proud of that. We're really proud of that because that is the way of saying, hey, you know what? We build this technology for humanity. And we think that anyone which can use it, which can take advantage of it, it's free, it's for all. And I encourage any of you which wants to try it and use it, download it, try it.
Yeah, amazing. And maybe zooming in on the financial institutions specifically, because we have a few of them in the room. How do you foresee, or well, how can financial institutions leverage QuarkID's identity framework, and what kind of use cases do you foresee coming out of that for them specifically?
Well, I think that the most obvious one is portable KYC without relying on a centralized platform. I think and I hope that in the next 3 to 4 years, with the ADAS push that self-sovereign identity is having in Europe, with the path that the US is probably taking, with Canada digital, the Pan-Canadian Trust Framework, we'll start to see an ecosystem that will be able of interoperating against each other. And QuarkID in Latin America is becoming pretty strong. Today we have Buenos Aires, we have 3 different provinces in Argentina, we have 2 subnational states in Mexico, several cities in Mexico and in Argentina. We're working with Colombia, with Peru, with El Salvador. So QuarkID is gaining quite a lot of traction in the region. And specifically for the region, I think that that's very important because Latin America has a lot of bureaucratic friction, and this maybe is a path in order to reduce that friction.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. And also, institutions, I mean, you have the opportunity to position yourself at the forefront of decentralized identity. And if you attended the BlackRock presentation, Robert Mitchnick, he also said, in order to tokenization, something to the extent of in order to make tokenization actually come to fruition, digital identity is going to be one of the key aspects to make that happen. And to really help create a foundation of more inclusive, privacy-focused services globally. One more question, we're almost at time, but looking ahead, what's next for QuarkID? And for institutions, how can they get involved, aside from talking to us after this panel, obviously?
Well, we are in, not QuarkID per se, because again, it's an open source protocol, but we're in the process, collaborating with ZKsync, in creating an app-specific chain in order to deal with several different aspects that need to be tackled when dealing with identity regarding blockchain. One of them, and perhaps the most important one, is identity, because of regulations, need to run on a ZK stack or a ZK chain running on Validium mode. That means no data is stored on chain, but you store a ZK proof of that data, and the data should be stored off chain, so as to give you the chance of deleting that data, and that is a GDPR compliance requirement. And we really focus in achieving that with a platform which is connected to QuarkID, which allows governments in the region to digitalize their interactions with citizens.
Well, Diego, I wanted to thank you for not just being here today at this panel, but for all the innovation you've pushed through in your firm, not in your firm, in your term. And, well, I can't wait to see what comes more for empowering your citizens. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, George.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.